You seriously left your door unlocked? Rookie mistake. Commander Valrek's voice boomed across the Starbase Primus briefing room. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, each one narrowing as he stared down at Ben Shimmers. Ben rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the heat of embarrassment rising. Look, I just forgot, okay? It was my first night on the station. I was exhausted. Valrek's pale blue skin darkened slightly, a clear sign of irritation. Exhaustion doesn't excuse carelessness, especially when Xylaxians are in pairing season. He jabbed a thick finger toward Ben. Do you have any idea what kind of diplomatic disaster you could have caused? Ben tried not to wince. He was new to Starbase Primus, but he'd heard the rumors. The station was a hub for interstellar diplomacy, a floating metropolis orbiting a gas giant in the outer rim. Aliens from dozens of species worked, lived, and mingled here. And some had, well, peculiar customs. Look, nothing happened, Ben insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Valrek's eyes narrowed further. Nothing, he repeated, his tone dripping with disbelief. You're telling me that Lieutenant Nera just happened to wander into your quarters and decided to have a friendly chat? Ben's mind flashed back to the previous night. The door had slid open silently, and Nera had stood there, her golden skin gleaming under the low lights. Her deep violet eyes had locked onto him, and for a moment, time had seemed to stand still. Well, she didn't exactly chat, Ben admitted, his face heating up. Valrek groaned. Shimmers, let me spell this out for you. Xylaxian females in pairing season don't do casual visits. If she came to your quarters, it wasn't to borrow a data pad. Ben swallowed hard. He'd been in the Earth Defense Force for years, but nothing had prepared him for this kind of scenario. Fighting off hostile pirates? Sure. Negotiating with territorial planetary governors? Piece of cake. But navigating the complexities of interspecies attraction? That was a whole different battlefield. So what do I do now? Ben asked, trying to keep his voice steady. You lock your damn door, Valrek snapped. And you keep things professional with Nera. Trust me, you don't want to get tangled up in this. Xylaxians are intense. Ben nodded, though he couldn't help but think back to Nera's mesmerizing gaze and the subtle, almost magnetic pull he felt in her presence. Keeping things professional was going to be easier said than done. Later that day, Ben found himself stationed at the central security hub, monitoring the flow of personnel and cargo through the station's various sectors. The holographic display in front of him flickered with streams of data, but his mind kept drifting back to Nera. You're distracted, a voice said from beside him. Ben turned to see Threx, a hulking Zorvian with iridescent scales and a booming laugh that could shake walls. Threx was his partner on the security team and had a reputation for being both brutally honest and fiercely loyal. Just a rough morning, Ben admitted. Threx's eyes gleamed with amusement. Let me guess. Nera? Ben's jaw dropped. How did you? Threx let out a deep, rumbling laugh. Come on, Shimmers. Everyone on the station knows about her little midnight visit. The gossip network here is faster than light-speed communication. Ben groaned and buried his face in his hands. Fantastic. Don't worry, Threx said, clapping a massive hand on Ben's shoulder. You're not the first human to catch a Xylaxian's eye, and you won't be the last. Great, Ben muttered. Any advice on how to handle it? Threx's grin widened. Yeah, run. Fast. Before Ben could respond, an alert blared through the security hub. Red lights flashed, and the holographic display shifted to show a breach in one of the outer cargo bays. Looks like playtime's over, Threx said, his expression turning serious. Let's move. Ben nodded, grateful for the distraction. Whatever was happening in the cargo bay had to be easier to deal with than his complicated feelings about Nera. The cargo bay was a mess when they arrived. Crates were scattered across the floor, and the air was thick with smoke. Several security officers were already on the scene, weapons drawn. Report, Threx barked. Unauthorized vessel docked without clearance, one of the officers said. Crews unaccounted for. Ben's instincts kicked in. Split up and sweep the area. Threx, you take the east side. I'll cover the west. As they moved through the chaos, Ben's focus sharpened. The tension in his chest eased, replaced by the familiar rush of adrenaline. This was his element. He rounded a corner and spotted movement near a stack of crates. Drawing his weapon, he advanced cautiously. "Hold it right there," he commanded. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, lean, and unmistakably alien. Their skin shimmered like liquid silver, and their eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. "State your business," Ben demanded. The alien tilted their head, a slow, deliberate motion. "We mean no harm," they said in a voice that was both melodic and unsettling. "Our ship malfunctioned. We sought refuge here." Ben's grip on his weapon tightened. "You're trespassing on a secure station. That's not going to fly." "Perhaps we can come to an understanding," the alien suggested, their lips curling into a smile that didn't quite reach their eyes. Before Ben could respond, Nara's voice cut through the tense atmosphere. "Stand down, Shimmers." Ben glanced over his shoulder to see her approaching, her violet eyes blazing with authority. She moved with a predatory grace, and despite himself, Ben felt his pulse quicken. "Nara? What are you doing here?" "Command assigned me to this mission," she said, her tone clipped. "And it looks like I got here just in time." The alien's gaze shifted to Nara, and their expression softened. "Lieutenant Nara," they said with a respectful nod. "It's been a long time." Ben's eyebrows shot up. "You know them?" Nara's jaw tightened. "It's a complicated story." She turned to the alien. "We'll discuss this back at the station. For now, you're coming with us." As the alien complied, Ben couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning of a much larger story. One that would test not only his skills as a security officer, but also his resolve to keep his growing attraction to Nara in check. And deep down, he knew that was going to be the toughest mission of all. Back in the command center, Nara and Ben interrogated the silver-skinned alien, who introduced themselves as Velos, an envoy from the distant Andar Nebula. Velos's voice was smooth and almost hypnotic as they explained their predicament. "Our vessel's power core destabilized," Velos said. "We had no choice but to dock at your station to prevent a catastrophic failure." Ben folded his arms. "And you didn't think to request clearance first?" "There was no time," Velos replied. "Had we delayed, the resulting explosion would have wiped out a significant portion of this sector." Nara's expression remained unreadable. "We'll verify your story. If you're lying—" "I am not," Velos interjected calmly. "But I understand your caution." Ben glanced at Nara, silently communicating his unease. Velos was smooth, too smooth. There was something about them that set Ben's nerves on edge. "Threx is running a full scan on your ship," Nara said. "If we find anything suspicious, you'll be answering to Commander Valrek." Velos inclined their head gracefully. "I would expect nothing less." As Velos was escorted out of the room, Ben exhaled sharply. "You trust them?" "Not even a little," Nara admitted. "But we need to handle this carefully. The Andar Nebula is a strategic region. If Velos is here on official business, it could have major implications." Ben nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Guess this mission just got a whole lot more complicated." Nara's lips curved into a faint smile. "Welcome to Starbase Primus." In the days following Velos's arrival, the atmosphere on Starbase Primus grew tense. Security protocols were heightened, and rumors of potential espionage spread like wildfire. Ben found himself constantly on edge. Even routine patrols felt charged with danger, as if an invisible threat lurked around every corner. And then there was Nara, always poised, always commanding. Her presence was a constant distraction, a magnetic force he couldn't resist. Late one evening, Ben was reviewing security logs in the operations room when Nara walked in. She moved with her usual grace, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "Shimmers," she said quietly, "we need to talk." Ben set down his datapad. "What's going on?" "Velos," Nara said, her voice taut. "There's more to their story than they're letting on. And if we're not careful, this station could be in serious danger." "They're playing a game," Ben said, narrowing his eyes. "I can feel it." Nara nodded, her expression grim. "I've been tracking their movements. They've made contact with at least 3 other species stationed here, all high-ranking representatives. And every conversation has been off the record." Ben's jaw tightened. Sounds like diplomatic espionage. Exactly, Nera agreed. We need to find out what they're planning. But we have to be subtle. If we confront them without proof, it could spark an interstellar incident. Ben's mind raced. What do you suggest? Nera hesitated, then sighed. We go undercover. Velos trusts me, or at least pretends to. I can get close to them, dig for information, and me, Ben asked, knowing he wouldn't be comfortable sitting on the sidelines. You'll cover my back, she said firmly. If anything goes wrong, I need someone I trust to pull me out. Ben's chest tightened at her words. You trust me? He asked, his voice softer than he'd intended. Her violet eyes met his, and for a moment, the tension between them was palpable. Yes, Ben, she said quietly. I do. The weight of her words hung in the air, but they had no time to dwell on it. The station's security was at risk, and they were the only ones who could stop whatever Velos was planning. Over the next few days, Nera played her part perfectly, attending diplomatic functions and subtly gathering intel from Velos. Ben, meanwhile, monitored every interaction from the shadows, ready to intervene if things went south. It didn't take long for a pattern to emerge. Velos was orchestrating secret meetings, but their true objective remained elusive. Then came the breakthrough. One evening, Nera returned to the operations room with a triumphant glint in her eyes. I got it, she said breathlessly. Ben leaned forward. What did you find? They're planning to disrupt the station's central power core, she revealed. If they succeed, the entire station will be crippled, and it will look like a technical failure. Ben's blood ran cold. Why? What's their motive? Nera's expression darkened. Chaos. If the station goes down, it will destabilize the entire region. Velos's people could swoop in and take control under the guise of offering aid. Ben stood, his resolve hardening. Then we stop them. Now. The operation was swift and precise. Ben and Nera led a team of security officers to the power core, where they found Velos and a group of operatives preparing to execute their plan. Step away from the console, Ben ordered, his weapon trained on Velos. Velos's silver skin shimmered in the dim light. Ah, Lieutenant Nera and Officer Shimmers, they said smoothly. You're just in time to witness history. History isn't going to be written by you, Nera shot back. Surrender now, or we will use force. Velos's smile was cold. I'm afraid I can't allow that. Chaos erupted as Velos's operatives opened fire. Ben and Nera moved in perfect sync, their years of training kicking in. Blasts of energy lit up the room as the two sides clashed. Ben's focus was razor-sharp. He took down one operative after another, his movements precise and lethal. Beside him, Nera was a blur of motion, her combat skills unmatched. As the last operative fell, Velos attempted to flee. But Nera was faster. She tackled them to the ground, pinning them with surprising strength. It's over, she hissed. Velos's eyes gleamed with defiance. This is only the beginning, they whispered. You can't stop what's coming. Ben stepped forward, his weapon trained on Velos. Watch us. With Velos and their operatives in custody, Starbase Primus was secure once more. The power core had been stabilized, and the threat of chaos had been averted. In the aftermath, Ben and Nera stood side by side in the command center, exhaustion etched into their faces. You did good out there, Ben said quietly. Nera's lips curved into a faint smile. So did you. There was a beat of silence, and then Nera spoke again. Ben, about everything that's happened between us. I know, he said gently. Duty comes first. She nodded, though her eyes held a flicker of something more, something unresolved. Maybe one day, he added, his voice low. Maybe, she agreed. As they stood there, surrounded by the hum of the station and the knowledge of the challenges yet to come, Ben couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Starbase Primus was safe, but their journey was far from over. And deep down, he knew that whatever came next, they'd face it together.